Why people quit YouTube. This is something that's kind of interesting. A lot of people get stuck, and it doesn't necessarily need to be YouTube here either. But I think probably there's a couple unique things about YouTube that most people are familiar with. And if not, I mean, I'll just go ahead and say it. Number one, by far, probably troll hate comments is something that a lot of people have problems dealing with. Now, I've been very fortunate with me because I'm kind of unique in the sense that I've already had a really successful career and I don't need any external validation from a comment, which is great. So when I see a comment like, hey, you don't know what you're doing, I'm like, okay, well, I kind of done this most of my life, so I'm probably going to say you just don't understand something. But it's more than that. I think a lot of times you figure out a way to deal with the hate. If you have any kind of success in any kind of following, you're going to end up with a lot of haters. It goes with the territory. I think a lot of people end up lashing out and saying bad stuff or stuff they may not need because of a lot of the hate that's might be directed towards them. And that's just an unfortunate side effect. Me personally, I just kind of just block as much out it as I can. Try not to respond. I think in the early days I did respond a couple times. I think in my first year, and some stuff did get to me, and I was just like, oh my gosh, because back then I didn't know how to work a camera. I didn't know how to do audio very good. Still don't that well, but it's something I've learned at least to where it's more bearable now, and it's like, oh, okay, that doesn't look too bad. And I would say a lot of that is just dealing with hate. So that's number one. Troll comments. Obviously, if I had to say anything here, any feedback is just ignore it, block it out, and then just hide any users. A lot of people don't hide users that are always leaving a negative or maybe even just a snide remark. I've had some really people that are just very hateful in not necessarily disrespectful, just disrespectful, I think is probably the best way to do it. And when you run into those people, that's not someone that you want leaving a comment. You don't want to interact with those people, and it's important to just try and purge as much of that as you can, and then just leave it. And that's kind of what I do. And that's the approach I think most people, after they see some type of success, they move on to number two. And I'd say number two is burnout. A lot of people run into burnout with YouTube, and this is something that is pretty common and I understand fairly well. I would say some of it is a conditioning kind of thing. Like for me, I was starting to you run into like what's called creative burnout, not necessarily physical burnout like you get in a regular job. Where I remember one time physical burnout wise, I was working 100-hour weeks for 6 months straight. And one time I slept at a data center for like pretty much 2 weeks. It was just not a fun experience. And thinking back to that and then going to YouTube, you're just like, yeah, that's obviously way worse. But with YouTube, it's a different kind of burnout when it comes to you just get mentally drained because when it comes to YouTube, you have those, especially those that have just like one channel, you know what people will watch. You get a good feel for it. At least after a couple years, I've made 600 something videos. I really understand. Hey, if I wanted to make a video with 1 million views, it'd probably be something over Windows. I would probably type in some kind of tool or utility or just make something new that would be extremely beneficial for that certain audience. I know it would have a mass base, and that's what I would do. And then you just rinse and repeat once you find something that works like that. And a lot of people just do that. For me, a good counter to this is to kind of just do a brain dump. Find something that you just want to share your knowledge. That's one thing I started YouTube with just the intention of teaching people all about tech, whatever it might be. At the time, it was actually Windows Server stuff is the initial thought behind a lot of my stuff. And then it went into I think I was really excited about a crypto project, and I actually made a lot of videos. And actually, the first big video I had on there, and I say big, more than 1,000 view video I had, was going over utilizing the EOS blockchain and doing commits and utilizing their native tools to interact with projects, which was kind of fun, something that kind of scratched that itch for me. But I kind of moved past that. It was real shallow, and I couldn't. I knew real quick that, hey, if I followed that path, I didn't like the project EOS, and I didn't like a lot of things about the crypto community. I was like, ooh, I got to do something different. I pretty much just pivoted back to Windows servers, and then occasionally came Linux and some other stuff. But I say all this because a lot of people just make videos to try and get views, or they figure out what videos get views, and then they only do those videos, and it just tends to be the same content regurgitated up in a different packaging. And people, believe it or not, YouTube works this way. You can do that and you will still get a lot of views because it's what people like, it's what YouTube wants. And you could literally just do this to infinity forever. It's one of those things. And as terrible it is to say that, it's true. And some people do that, and I don't know how they stay sane. I think this is where a lot of people drop off, because they'll do it so much and they'll burn out so bad because they're so sick of that one thing that they just can't do it, or they'll make a drastic shift. And I think that's a big mistake. A lot of times, if you're in that rut, like, I think at some point in time, I think I was just like tired of just talking about Linux all the time, and I was running into some other issues with it, and I was just like, all right. So I started kind of mixing in more content to do it, and then to also kind of have that other way of just like this type of video, which I wouldn't normally do on a main channel. I just put this and made this second channel, and I was like, oh, you know what, I'll just rebrand that, do more talking head pieces to kind of scratch that creative itch, to try and ease that burnout. And then I even made a third and fourth channel to more just have fun with, and just create to not get views, to not do any of that, not make any money, not monetize or any of it. It's just for fun. And that's what I love about it. You know, just be able to do things that are enjoying and kind of refresh that creative aspect so you don't burn out creatively. But a lot of people, like I said, do exactly that. That's why that happens. And probably the last thing why people quit YouTube is they're just not growing. And this, not necessarily from a view standpoint, because honestly, once you find stuff that people like, you could, like I said, you can rehash that, but they're just not growing personally. They're kind of just talking about the same thing they've always talked about. They just never really pick up a new talent or skill as a human. Take out all the social media elements and just think about that. People do this in real life too, where they just go to the same job, they do the same 2 or 3 things, and then they come home. And I don't say this to demean anybody. I've been in this situation, so I understand it. And I've had a 9 to 5 where I just did the same thing day in and day out. It's like that 9 Inch Nails song, every day is the same. And I think everybody goes through this rut. And it's especially true on YouTube, I think, just because of the nature of the beast. But you definitely get that. And it's really important to take time to grow. And a lot of times that requires you to step away, or maybe not make as much stuff, or make as many videos about a certain thing that is currently just performing well, and you just feel obligated to keep doing that. But it's something that you just have to do. You have to always be learning something new and bettering yourself. And I think that's true in everything, in every profession. Everybody needs to always be learning something new. And for me, that's kind of what I do. And that's trying to better stuff like this. I can like use this channel to try a new camera shot, which actually I kind of like this shot. Looking over here at the monitor, I'm like, it's like got a little more dynamic, more for a fireside chat like this. And yeah, it's kind of a fun thing. And anywho, that's one of the big things. And I actually kind of want to show like my board here. I got like my little course thingy I'm making for just to teach people about Linux, which I thought would be kind of fun, and just build all that out. And then at the very top in big bold letters, I don't know if you can read that or not, but it says create, don't consume. And that's kind of where I want to leave this is create, don't consume. I have to constantly remind myself of this because it's something to where it's very easy to get on YouTube and get lost or just get caught up in your own stuff and just consume Netflix or consume YouTube or consume whatever social media that might be there. You know, it's just one of those things to always be trying to create something is something I remind myself every day. I try to create a little bit of something. It doesn't have to be a whole like earth-changing thing. It's just learning something new or creating something or starting to create something or making progress on something I'm creating. Always something like that I think is important for everyone. And it could be a musician, it could be anything. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong. Whether it's a YouTuber or just in your day-to-day. In the today's world, I think it's so important to take that to heart. And that's where I'm going to leave this one. Create, don't consume. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. How'd you like this shot? I might change it around a little bit. This is just something new I thought I'd try. It'd be really hard because my computer's over here. So this would be a hell of a turn if I did desktop. But I don't know. I just got tired of that old shot. And I wanted to try something new. It's important to learn. Try new things. Yeah, anyway. Later all.